Hello. This is the third and the last part of our seminar and a part of my little experiment to introduce various aspects of the seminar that we haven't managed to do it in the class, so you can listen to, and then maybe we can come back when we meet in the class again. This little part have two main goals. First, to intrigue you, to make you intrigued by the lecture of Professor Rief Ellen Prell on Jewish feminism. And I will start with this, giving you a little bit of a preview of this lecture. It is a lecture on YouTube, and you will have it on your website. But I just wanted to give you a little preview to show you how absolutely interesting and intriguing is this lecture. And also then we will go to give the little overview. We have by no means no time for any detailed lecture on this. Maybe next year we will have a series of seminar on Hannah Arendt, but just to following Irena Klepfish of a proposition on secular identity or talking about Jewishness. I wanted to show that to show you how this probably one of the most famous Jewish women or women philosopher thought about Jewishness that could be useful. The notion of position of Jewish people in history can be useful in seeing the notion of citizenship in or a public, on the relationship between public and private in contemporary philosophy. Let's start with Professor Rief Ellen Prell.
Religion has served as one of those critical forms of differentiation among women that undermines the promise of unity. As feminists draw on modernity to claim equality, they reject religion as its antithesis. Joan Scott suggests that what we might put in a classic formulation, that religion is to modernity as women are to men. Women, like religion, is too emotional, too embodied, and too weak. Science, property, citizenship, and reason are the domains of the male. Religion, emotions, embodiment, and dependence are the worlds of women. Therefore, particularly for the founding generation of feminist scholarship, feminism and religion were antithetical. Women could not claim a religious life because religion was fundamentally a tool of oppression. Scott suggests that the only antidote to this unproductive binary thinking is to ask that feminist scholars begin to deconstruct secularism, just as they have universalism, liberalism, and nationalism, in order to understand its intellectual genealogy and to refocus on the ways in which women negotiate both the terrain of the secular and the religious. Scott's work is, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is on Islam in France, and she's written about the issue of headscarves in schools. She is particularly concerned about French feminists' refusal to acknowledge the legitimacy of women's rights to cover their heads as feminists. What interests me about Jewish feminism is that it offers a kind of middle term to the binary so powerfully laid out by Joan Scott. If second-wave feminists laid claim to equality by dismissing religion as a tool of patriarchy, so too did second-wave feminists engage religious traditions to reshape and reinterpret them. In analyzing the different feminist claims on Judaism, we have an interesting view on the feminist paradox. We can only understand the meaning of equality by carefully unpacking it in its historical context in which it was created and through the meanings ascribed to it. I want, therefore, to look with you at three meanings of equality in Jewish feminism over a century, a period of a century, in order to understand the effort to equalize rather than reject patriarchal religions, and then its effect on this paradox that I'm discussing.
Greet Ellen Prell in a very interesting way, trying to show how Jewish feminism has to not it's the middle way between it is a middle way between feminist standpoint that rejects religion and to make it to reject religion as the antidote or the opposition of modernity, which is connected also to citizenship and rationality, and the contemporary notion of reclaiming religion with its patriarchy. This lecture has two parts, and this part that you have a link here is the introduction, and whenever you find it on YouTube, you will have the follow-up of this lecture. Absolutely fascinating in terms of making the connection between the history of feminism and Jewish reclaiming of feminism, and also Jewish women appropriation of feminism within also Judaism. And another part of our lecture, or another important another important aspects of thinking about Jewish women and Jewish women and or women and Jewishness is, I think, it is worth mentioning the philosophy or working of Hannah Arendt, which, with no doubt, is one of the most famous women's philosopher of the 20th century, and absolutely famous for her analysis of totalitarianism, and also on the mechanism of the thinking of the mind of the Nazi mind, of the mind of the administrator of Holocaust. And today I would like to introduce her very, very shortly, so we remember her as the philosopher that gives despite the fact that she usually did not took part in the debate on Jewishness, but she's definitely the philosopher that was absolutely aware of also interested in the notion of the historical position of Jewish people within European or Western culture. Hannah Arendt was born in 1906. She died in 1975, and she's well known as political philosophers. As the German Jewish citizen, she was forced to leave Germany, and she in the mid 1930s she lived in Paris, and then at the beginning of 1940s she managed to immigrate to United States, where she stayed for forever. And I think there are several central ideas to Arendt thoughts, such as freedom, action, power, judgment, evil, forgiveness, and the social. And those aspects of her philosophies, those key words are also very important to understand her situation, her position as the Jewish philosopher. As you can see, those key words are very universal, and therefore she her thinking of her deliberation on Jewishness was always on the margins, on which she was also about which she was also very often criticized. She's best known for two works: The Origin of Totalitarianism, published in 1951, and the second, The Human Condition, in 1958. But most popular in the popular knowledge is best known for Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil, published in 1963. And in this banality of evil, she coins this term, but it's also very much connected to her notion of understanding. Understanding is not to forgive or not to understand in a way that you see that rationality of these events, not at all, but you understand the process. So, however banal might be evil, it doesn't take the horrifying element of this, how evil that could it be, how much harm and suffering this evil can bring. This is very important in a notion to remember. Understanding does not mean forgiving or comprehending or to give the rationality to the actions. This is a very important, very interesting. This is about the understanding from this, and when we wanted to talk about women and Haskalah, it's actually the notion of it is connected to Hannah Arendt, because she wrote a very famous book on Rachel Antonie Friederike van Hagen. And this book was published only in 1950s, even though it was supposed to be her postdoctoral, let's say, work in 1930s, but she hasn't finished this. And it is a book. Then she started in Germany and then finished in US. Rachel van Hagen, The Life of Jewess, and it's a book-length biography of Rachel van Hagen, written by written as a series with postdoc research, published in 1956. Rachel or Rachel van Hagen biography. It's a biography of Jewess or Jewish woman, Jewish socialite, who performed an important step in Arendt analysis of the Jewish history and the subject of assimilation. This is why I connected it to Haskalah attitude to women. First of all, Haskalah as the Jewish Enlightenment movement in the late 18th century was connected to the notion of the importance of Jewish assimilation in order to become a citizens of the society. And these uh, uh, Jewish voices or Jewish realization of the importance of participation in the public is very important for a political philosopher or political thinker, which is Hannah Arendt. Women as the subject for Haskalah thinkers like Moser Mendelssohn are quite marginalized, and we don't really mm, have a lot of debates on this. Maybe later on we have within Haskalah like or Haskalah follow up in the 19th century, but at that time Jewish Jewish women are not uh, mm, particularly important in the debate on the assimilation of Jewishness or the emancipation of Jewish people in the European countries. What Hannah Arendt does is in her book on Rachel Van is trying to give a voice to one of Jewish Jewish who tries to make the impact. Nevertheless, as we can see in the excerpt, this is from Amos Allen, The Pity of It All, The History of the Jews in Germany from 1743 to 1933, and fascinating survey of the Jewish history. This character that was part of that biography was the postdoc's research of Hannah Arendt. It was a complicated character. Amos Allen writes, she hated her Jewish background and was convinced it had poisoned her life. Her overriding desire was to free herself from the shackles of her birth, since, as she thought, she had been pushed out of the world by her origins. She was determined to escape them. She never really succeeded. In 1810, she changed her family name to Robert, and in 1814, after her mother died, she converted. But her origins continue to haunt her even on her deathbed. On the deathbed, there are rumors that she reconverted, that she go back to the Jewish faith. Why do I mention this book on Hannah Arendt? I mention it because I think that the work on Rachel Van and the position of the Jewish women or the Jewish society in the Haskalah movement, in the Jewish Enlightenment movement, developed the notion of pariah, P-A-R-I-A-H, pariah. That was a part of Hannah Arendt's notion of the Jewish position in the society and the needs of emancipation. In her text, The Jew as Pariah, a Hidden Tradition, Arendt distinguishes between the conscious pariahs, or the Jews who were aware of their margin status, both in Jewish society and in relationship to European culture, and the parvenus who at best are accepted only as exceptions. Arendt probes the lives and works of several conscious pariahs, as Heinrich Heine, Franz Kafka, Rosa Luxemburg, Rachel Van and just to mention several. Arendt's pariahs are primarily literary, cultural, intellectual, and political figures whose gifts and achievement she recognizes as enduring and whose prospects are enriched by the consciousness of and wisdom that is the gift of of a marginalized uh, existence. The women pariahs, Arendt describes um, um, as um, they inhabit the world of pariah in the double aspect, not only the Jewish women, but also as women. But they also they they show particular strength because they confront the dominant culture and while belonging to the milieu of intellectual women, which, because of its small size, results in even more peripheral and marginalized status than their less intellectually oriented counterparts, but being still men. The women pariah who were on the periphery attempting to gain foothold inside the public realm, both as women and as Jews. But they mostly live outside, circulating in the private domain. Arendt's portrait for example, Rosa Luxemburg proves that to be exception to this, however, gaining status and legitimacy are hard enough to the male pariah, let alone the female pariah's struggle for recognition. Arendt's analysis then of two women's pariah, Rachel Van Hagen and Rosa Luxemburg, reveals the complication of the pariah's dilemma. It has also become an illumination and, in part, a reflection on her own pariah status as a German Jewish women intellectual and a refugee living in the particularly volatile times of the Second World War, Europe, and after. As well, this the this pariah notion, the position of pariah, it's quite interesting because it shows that the history of post-emancipation Jews' exclusion from European society, their marginality, and inability to become full and equal participant in the public realm significantly informs Arendt's vision of the political. To be part of the political realm must be, for the Jewish society, one of the most important goals. Arendt is highly critical of the long history of Jewish exclusion and estrangement from the political realm and argues, moreover, that the Jews must assume a share of caring for the world in general, for the general public. The pariah must, she says, establish and claim political and legal identities in order to share a stake in the world. Arendt opposes social solutions to the Jewish questions that at best foster only assimilations a cosmetic change. Her analysis suggests that pariah can have access to the public realm and find a home in the world with awakening of consciousness of the importance of being part of the society, a full part of the society. Arendt's view on the Jewish questions as inherently political stems from her strict separation of the public from the private realm and the political from the social. These profound distinctions turns on the Greek notions freedom versus necessity. Freedom sets the stage for politics, acting and speaking among one's equals in the space of appearances. The private realm corresponds with necessity and it compromises of emotions as well as activities of production and consumption. All of this for Arendt is a fundamentally anti-political. Just wanted to mention how completely pre-second wave feminism is this thinking that where private is not political at all. But that is another aspect. Has Arendt been was Arendt a feminist? She openly says no, but that is another question. Well, Arendt's public sphere is comprised of freedom, action, speech, and memory. It is privileged realm for citizen actors to come together to talk about things that cannot be figured out with certainty. This brings into focus the crucial distinction Arendt draws between the political and the social. For Arendt, matters of distributive justice and social economic equality are not stuff of politics, but belong to social and administrative spheres. Because social welfare issues have to do with producing and consuming, or the realm of necessity, they are fundamentally anti-political and therefore not within the purview of Arendt's higher order politics. Arendt politics, including theorizing, storytelling, narrativity, recovery, and remembrance, all of which illuminate experience, its meaning, and political identity. But what is very interesting in the notion of the pariah, it is to see how pariah's independence stances or independent stances provide in thinking about political provide for critical perspective, enabling the general to think about the situation that are strange or they are unexpected. Because the pariah responses always have something that distance them from the attachment. They are always detached. This independent stance of pariah amounts to pariah living as the rebel among other on or about other people, about the rest of the society. It is also Hannah Arendt's own experience as a refugee that probably amounts to this notion. And this position makes pariah particularly interesting in the critical thinking. Hannah Arendt does not write about it anymore, but in the post-modernist, post-colonialist thinking, we can actually take this analysis of women, Jewish women, or Jewish people as pariah, as the measurement of the democracy, the measurement of exclusion, of thinking about the center and margins, thinking about the mainstream and the outskirts, thinking about the central and the periphery. In this way, I think Hannah Arendt thinking about importance of listening to the pariah in order to reclaim the objective or justice politics are very, very contemporary. Here are several sources which I think are very useful. Rachel Levin Varnhagen, The Life and Work of German Jewish Intellectual by Heidi Thompson Tewerson is a latest another way of retelling the story. There is also very interesting Haskalah attitude towards women, which you can find in the Jewish Women Archives. And also, obviously, the Hannah Arendt biography by Julia Kristeva is a very in the series on Jewish of women's geniuses. Are quite interesting. There is a chapter there particularly connected to Hannah Arendt and her work on Jewish identity. Hannah Arendt, Rachel Van Hagen, Jewishness as pariah, the Jewish position of the margins, and the margin that connects with the mainstream politics and change the perspective of the politics. Also, the quest of not only assimilation as Haskalah wanted it, but also changing of consciousness is another way of thinking about post-war Jewish identity. Another from the one we talk about in connection to Irena Klepfish. Those are just two. One is based on the history of Bund and memory of Bund, social engagement. Another political notion and historical notion, the history of politics by Hannah Arendt. Those two are only two of many. In the next lessons, we will talk about it. But at the same time, I always want you to remember that these are always connected to the two notions, or many of notions, three mainly notions. The notion of political engagement, historical context, and also personal identity. And those three aspects will be with us with analysis of the next texts. This is just a couple of words about Hannah Arendt and her analysis of Jewish women and women activity in the Jewish identity. And the next time we will do a little bit a short overview on Jewish women's writing, Hebrew women's writing of the 20th, in the 20th, second part of the 20th century.